Everyone. So today, just trying to get that set up there. Um, so today we're moving into factoring trinomials, which is what we did yesterday. Um, but now we're looking at trinomials where your a value is something other than 1. So remember, yesterday I pointed out that all of the trinomials we were doing started with just an x squared. And what that allowed us to do was really simply come up with a combination of numbers here that multiplied to this and added to this. Okay? When I throw this extra number in here, that relationship doesn't stay quite as consistent. Okay, it's a lot harder to come up with the combination of numbers that you need. So I'm going to start with a little history lesson here. I'm going to show you how I learned how to factor these things. Okay, and then if you like that method, you're welcome to use it. But then I'm going to show you a method that I've learned in just the past few years that I think is a little more direct. Okay. So I'm going to do this first example the old way. Um, and that was really just through straight up guess and check. Okay. So just like before, I'm going to start with my two parentheses. I'm going to look at this sign, right? And I'm going to say, I know I need a plus and I know I need a minus. Except this time, because of the fact that this is a 2x squared, it's not just x and x anymore. Okay. It would be like 2x and x. And what that's going to do is when I go to do my addition, whatever number's over here, if you think about how FOIL works, is going to end up getting multiplied by this 2 before it gets added together to make that 7. Okay? So that's why it's not quite as direct. I can't just say what multiplies to 4 and adds to 7. But I do still want to think about how could I multiply to make a 4. Okay? So I might try, let's let's see, a 2 and a 2, okay? But then I have to check that. So when I multiply these two together, I get a negative 4. When I multiply these two together, I get a positive 2. And negative 4 and positive 2 do not make negative 7, okay? Now, the fact that these are both 2's means it wouldn't matter even if I switched them around. But really with doing this method, I would also have to check it the other way around, because if these were two different numbers, this number getting multiplied by 2 would make a difference, okay? So I need to scrap these and go with something different, okay? Had to use pencil when you did these problems. So then I see, okay, what else could make 4 if 2 and 2 is not the correct answer? Could be a 4 and a 1, right? So 4 and 1. And then when I multiply here, I get a negative 2 and a positive 4. And that still doesn't give me that negative 7 that I'm looking for. Okay? Well, like I said a second ago, I also need to think about the possibility that these two are in the wrong spots, because now that makes a difference if this number is getting multiplied by 2. So let's try this again with a 1 here and a 4 here. Well, that would make a negative 8 and a positive 1, and negative 8 and 1 do make negative 7. So voila, on my third try, I came up with the right answer, okay? That was how these used to have to be done, okay? And it worked. I survived, okay? I can still factor that way. You just have to be perseverant, right? You just have to be willing to keep trying over and over and over again. And you have to remember that guess and check is about more than just the guess. You also have to check, okay? So this was always very frustrating to teach to students, because it's hard to tell you that you have to just keep trying out new numbers, and then it gets to be even more fun when I put, like, I don't know, maybe a 12 here, because then you have to think about not only what could these be, but how many different ways could you make 12 here and here, right? So that was cumbersome, okay, and difficult for students to do. And then a couple of years ago, I learned a different method, and that's what I'm about to show you. So I'm going to do it with this first example, and we're going to come out with this exact same answer, but it's a little more mathematical. There is a little bit of magic in there, but it's still mathematical, and it'll still lead you to the right answer. It's just a few more steps than just guessing and checking, okay? Because guessing and checking is nice if you guess correctly on the first try, but if you don't, sometimes it takes even longer. All right, let me get rid of my face. This always happens. Okay, there we go. So here's how this works, okay? step one, the very first thing you're going to do is multiply the first number by the last number. So that's a negative 8. And then kind of like what we were doing before, we want to find a combination of numbers that multiplies to make this, but adds to make that number in the middle. Okay, so multiplies to make negative 8, adds to make negative 7. Okay, and I'm going to go with 1 times negative 8, because 1 times negative 8 would give me negative 8, and then 1 plus negative 8 gives me negative 7. Okay, and what I do with those numbers is I use these to rewrite my original problem, but I'm going to break up this negative 7. So it's going to look like this. 2x squared plus 1x minus 8x minus 4. Okay? And that's still equivalent to my original because 1x plus negative 8x would give me negative 7x. Okay? And then what I'm going to do, this next piece is called factoring by grouping. And we don't actually cover factoring by grouping this year, but we can cover it a little bit here. You're going to see it, and you're going to get it. So I'm going to break these up. Now, I realize putting them in brackets like this makes it look like we're going to multiply them. We're not. We're just separating these two from these two. We're grouping them. And then what I want to do is look at these two and look for a GCF. What can I pull out of both of them? What do they have in common? Well, they each have an x in common. Okay. And then I want to say what would be left over after I took that x out. Well, here I would have just a 2x. And here I would have just a 1. Okay, so that's GCF factoring like we were doing the other day. Now I'm going to repeat that over here. I'm going to say what can come out of negative 8 and negative 4. Well, I can take a negative 4 out of both of those. And if I do negative 8 divided by negative 4, that would be positive 2x, because this has an x. And negative 4 times what makes negative 4? That would be a plus 1. Okay. And what you should notice, this is the part that might be a stretch because we haven't done factoring by grouping, but you should notice that you have twins here. You have parentheses that match exactly. And if you did all your steps correctly, that should always happen. So now what I'm technically doing, what I'm really doing here, is I'm pulling these two out almost like they were a greatest common factor. I'm saying that what does this piece and this piece have in common? They have a 2x plus 1 in common. And then I want to say, well, what would be left over if I took out the 2x plus 1s? I would have an x and a minus 4. Okay? And there are your two factors, just like we came up with through guess and check over here. Okay? So just to recap, multiply the a and the c, come up with a combination of numbers that multiplies to that number but adds to this number in the middle. Use that combination to rewrite the original problem. Group them, which means take the first two and the last two and pull a GCF out of each one. Okay? You should end up with two parentheses that match. That's always going to be one of your factors, and then the leftover pieces are your other factor. Let's try that again with the next one. Okay? So, start with 4 times 9. 4 times 9 is 36. Okay? And I'm looking for a combination that multiplies to 36 and adds to 20. If you can't come up with that off the top of your head, start going through your list. 1 and 36, 2 and 18, and right there, 2 and 18 would work for me. Okay? So I'm going to rewrite 4x squared plus 2x plus 18x plus 9. It actually doesn't matter what order you put those in. Okay, it would work either way, and I can show you more on that tomorrow. Group these and group these. Okay, and I'm going to say, what can I pull out of 4x squared and 2x? Well, I can take a 2x out of each of them. That would leave me with a 2x here, because 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared. That would leave me with a 1 here, plus, And then what can I pull from 18x and 9? I can pull a 9. And that would leave me with a 2x and a 1. Okay. And then when I go to write my factors, one of my factors is my twin parenthesis, so 2x plus 1. My other factor is my leftover pieces, the 2x plus 9. Okay, so I kind of worked through that one beginning to end. Maybe take a second, pause the video if you need to, and recap. Go back through those steps. What did I do in each step? Where did those numbers come from? Okay. Okay, let's try that last one. Start with 12 times negative 15. That gives me negative 180. Lots of possibilities here. And I'm looking for some combination that multiplies to negative 180 that would also add to negative 8. Okay? And right now, especially when your brain is swimming from all of these numbers that we did up here, you might not come up with that off the top of your head. So let's start rolling. So 1 times 180. And remember what I'm looking for, I want them to add to negative 8, but one of them has to be negative. Okay? So I'm really looking for like something that subtracts to 8. This would be 2 and 90. That's still not it. 3 and 60, still not it. 4 and 45, that still wouldn't make an 8. 5 and, oh gosh, I think it's 36. Okay, still not making an 8. 6 and 30, still not making an 8. 7 doesn't work. 8 does not work. 9 and 20. Getting closer, but still doesn't make an 8. 10 and 18, and there we go. Ding, ding, ding. 10 and 18. Because if I make one of those negatives, specifically if I make the 18 negative, 10 and negative 18 would give me negative 8. So sometimes coming up with this combo is a tricky one, okay? But you can do it. It'll always be there somewhere. So now let's rewrite 12x squared. I need that to be a positive 10x and a negative 18x minus 15. Okay. Let's group and group. What can I pull out of these two, 12x squared and 10x? Well, they have a 2 in common and an x in common. If I take the 2 out of 12, I'm left with 6. And if I took 1x away, I'd be left with x. Plus 2 out of 10 is 5, and then I took the x away, so that'd be 6x plus 5. Negative 18 and negative 15, the fact that these are both negative makes me want to pull out a negative number, and I'm going to pull out a negative 3, okay? So negative 3 out of negative 18 is positive 6x, and negative 3 out of negative 15 is positive 5. And like magic, these two came out the same, right? So that's my first factor. My first factor is 6x plus 5. My second factor is my leftover pieces, 2x minus 3. And if you foiled this back together, and I would foil it back together at least mentally here, 6x times 2x would give me 12x squared. Here I would get negative 18x and positive 10x, and negative 18 plus 10 is negative 8. And then 5 times negative 3 would give me the negative 15. Okay, so that was kind of a lot to take in there, but it is up to you. If you would rather be guessing and checking to your heart's content, you are welcome to do that. But just know that especially something like this is going to take a long time to guess and check through, because you have to come up with the combination to make the 12 and the combination to make the 15, thinking about all those possibilities of switching things around, think about all the plus minus possibilities, okay? So guessing and checking is going to take a while on something like that. It can be done, but it's going to be tough, okay? But this method is sort of a tried and true. It will always get you straight to the right answer. So if you want just a consistent way to do these every single time, this is the way to go, okay? Okay, so that's it for me for today. Let's talk homework real quick. I don't have a homework packet here in front of me. But on your homework packet, what I would like you to do is the next page, but just the front. It's numbers 1 through 8. Because if you're getting these wrong or if you're not understanding, there's no purpose in having me assign a bunch of them to you. So, very sorry about that quick pause. You are doing this page here, factoring trinomials, a is greater than 1. But for you guys, for my blended classes, I want you only to do this front side, 1 through 8. Okay, so just the front, and then tomorrow when you come in, we'll go over these, make sure that you're getting them correct, and as long as you are, then we can move on to the back. Okay? Okay, that's it from me for today. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow.